What's good in the hood, YouTube? This is Crazy Samurai 71 here bringing another video. Today I'm bringing you a video on episode 33 of the Powerpuff Girls TV show. This is an episode that was made, obviously, to go along with Halloween, which was good. It was called The Squashing. It was a good episode. You end up seeing the girls dressed up in different costumes. You end up seeing Bubbles dressed up as a penguin, Blossom as Ada Lovelace, who is supposedly some famous mathematician, and Sergeant Bones, which is some character that Buttercup came up with. Anyway, what happens is that they end up going trick-or-treating, and they end up getting very few candy because Bubbles ends up eating a lot of it. So they end up going to a house where there's a whole bucket. Thing is that Buttercup does the thing which is one of the worst things to do to a person when it comes to trick-or-treating, which is when it says take one, she takes one whole bucket. That's like the worst thing to do to a person ever, and that's something to apply to yourself. Like, just don't ever do that. I mean, most people don't, but it is a thing that does happen where people say, like, yeah, just take one whole, like, where people say, oh, I thought you meant one whole bucket. Yeah, no. So that's when suddenly a squash ends up appearing and trying to strangle them and is ready to kill them. Thing is that the girls are like, no, what if, you know what, if you're so scary, if you're so good, then why don't we tell you a scary story that, because you know, only if you're that great, then you have to be able to handle this. So then they're like, okay, I won't squash you if you can do that. So at that point, what happens is that they end up each telling different stories. For starters, Buttercup ends up telling a story about an attack of zombie toast, of zombie bread. And the thing is that there's even a funny moment where they end up saying, oh no, the Walking Bread are coming, not the Walking Dead. And like the funny, and I mean, I'm not even like a Walking Dead fan at all. Like, I know maybe one or two characters from the show, and I don't even watch the show ever, but I know a few characters just because it's like I watch enough other things that kind of reference it to the point that I just know like little snippets or whatever. So the thing is that, like, I think it was just really funny to see that. And the thing is that they end up attacking, and all these zombie breads are actually people that turn into zombie bread. So the whole idea is that they can't be touched by them, otherwise they turn into zombie bread. The mayor's turned into it. You end up seeing Princess Morbucks, who has ended up turned into gluten-free bread because it's more expensive, and it makes sense, but it's really funny. And then like you end up seeing Mojo as bread, and Mojo's like, I am the best banana bread, which makes sense since he's a monkey, you know. It's really simple and clever, but then suddenly it's going well, and it seems interesting until eventually, Blossom ends up having to be turned to zombie bread, and they end up trying to escape, and then suddenly Dracula shows up, which makes no sense. And so then the squash is like, this doesn't make any sense anymore. So it's like, okay, Blossom's turn. So Blossom's story is supposed to be a play off of Frankenstein. So she ends up having Jared, her boyfriend, who's supposedly dead, supposed to be brought back to life, and her into a Frankenstein monster, basically. So then what happens is that the townspeople are there, they're about to have an angry mob, and she ends up going back into the room, and she sees that Jared had made the room very messy. Pretty lame kind of story, which is why the squash is like, that's not scary, that's just boring, and it's not even that big of a deal. So then Bubbles has her own story, and the story makes sense for her. So what happens is that you end up having a story about a squash, and then the whole idea is that the squash isn't like it has a job, doing well and everything, and Princess Morbox is the one that's supposed to get rid of the squash and say, things are going down for the squash, it's pumpkin season now. So then what happens is that he ends up being fired, and so then all the friends, which are supposed to be the girls, end up trying to help get him back on his feet, and even the mayor ends up trying to help out in the story. And so then what happens is that eventually the squash ends up converting to the pumpkin, and they actually fall in love with each other. It's supposed to be a sweet story, and the whole idea is that at that point the squash realizes, I've made a grave mistake by treating the pumpkin as this enemy, and so it's supposed to be this sweet kind of nice ending. And then you end up seeing that apparently no one's understood Blossom's costume, but then suddenly you end up seeing that Mojo decided to dress up as Ada Lovelace as well. So it's really funny to see him dress up as a female character like that. But overall, it's like, yes, someone understands my costume. So they both are like, they actually can both relate for once, even though they're usually enemies. So it's a sweet episode, and it's a nice one. It's nice to have these short little stories, and it's also good because it's like, scary stories and Halloween. It's like, yeah, like that's good. Like, it makes sense that they would do something like that. Obviously, they could have made it a little more interesting, but based on the characters, based on the generation and all the other stuff, it's totally understandable why they did what they did. Also, basing the stories off of the characters, like Jared and all that makes a lot of sense. A zombie attack, totally, I could expect it. A happy love story, that makes sense for Bubbles. Overall, it's a good episode. It's not the greatest episode by any means, but it's definitely a much better episode as far as creating a simple story, like a simple idea that fulfills each of their different personalities and each of their own histories as characters, which is great. I would love to know your guys' opinions, obviously, in the comments below, what you guys think. Did you guys enjoy this episode? What was your favorite part? Personally, I just loved all the stories. I think that they were done pretty well. Even the ones that weren't the best, they still had the general feel of the characters and what they represent as far as personalities and characteristics that that are associated with them. Pretty much great stuff, worked out well. So leave your comments below. Check out my Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube. Also like, comment, subscribe, and do any of the other awesome stuff here. And tell me what you guys think. So that's about it for me, guys. Tell me, I'm looking forward to hearing from you. And eventually we'll be moving on to 34, which will come soon. And the show has only so many more episodes before the season ends. Most likely there'll be another season, which is not surprising at all, since the show has actually been received fairly well. Not the best show ever by any means, but it definitely has received enough feedback to the point that it is likely they'll make a second season, which is no big deal. And if they do a third one, fine. I've been reviewing this for a while, so please leave your comments below. And that's about it for me, guys. I'm Christian, and goodbye, guys.